We will choose the most popular questions if we get lots, so if you can use the like feature if someone else asks a question that you're interested in. If anyone for some reason can't actually access the Q&A feature, then please do feel free to use the chat with the word question beforehand if you have any questions for our presenters. The whole session is being recorded today. If you would like captions, then you can turn these on for yourself. There are 3 dots, like a little ellipsis at the top of your screen. Under there, you should see an option for settings, accessibility, and then you can toggle your captions on or off. So first of all, I'm going to hand over to Emily Hackney from the University of Leeds, who is going to be talking through their paper, Playful Encounters with Copilot, Introducing Library Colleagues to Generative AI Tools.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. Nice to see you. Nice to see some colleagues from Leeds as well. My name's Emily. I am based at the University of Leeds. I belong to the Learning Development team. This is my teaching assistant. She's not actually going to be very helpful today, but I'll do my best with her bugging me. So yeah, I'm talking today about some training that I did with my own team to support them to get familiar with Copilot, and we'll talk more about that as we go through the session. Let's pop the contents on the slide. So yeah, first of all, I'll just give you a really brief overview of why I did what I did, and then I'll talk to you about what actually I did, including a bit of detail about the activities that I used in the session, and then I'm going to evaluate what happened, how it went, give you some of my reflections, and talk a little bit about the future too. I am going to have a couple of minutes just to try out one of the activities that I did in the session. So if you want to do that during the session, it might be worth just opening up a browser page now so that you're ready. If you've got access to Microsoft Copilot, feel free to log into that. If you prefer to use a different chat AI tool, then go to that one instead. Please don't feel obliged if you'd prefer not to do the activity, that's all right as well. Okay then, so to give you a little bit of background about sort of the reasoning why I did what I did. We have at the University of Leeds been thinking about generative AI for most of the last academic year. We had some initial, go away, Dora. We had some initial guidance that was published last spring, actually, for students and for staff, and it basically said, like, oh, try not to use it in assessments, be really careful with it. As the year has progressed, we're taking a bit more of a nuanced view of it. So we've adopted a traffic light system for assessments and assessed work on modules. Basically a way of letting students know whether they're allowed to use AI in any given assessment. So if it's red, it's absolutely no AI use for producing your assessed work. If it's amber, there might be some specific things you're allowed to do with generative AI, but the rest of it is off limits. And if it's green, then AI would be a proper part of the assessment. So one of the tasks would be to use AI to produce something for the assessment. So because of that, because students are now going to be encouraged or even required to use generative AI in some of their assessments, we all need to know what we're talking about in order to support those students to do that work. So within my team, which is the Learning Development team, we provide a co-curricular workshop program, which we brand as Skills at Library. And we have had some plans to try and do some co-curricular workshops to support students to find out more about AI and to start becoming more confident using it. We're also expecting that we will be asked to go into the curriculum and start teaching embedded sessions where we specifically support students to use AI to complete their assessments. So it's really, really important for my colleagues in my team that we know what the tools look like, how they work, what you can and can't do with them, and start forming our own critical positions on AI as well. And I mean critical as in critical thinking, not necessarily negative. So what did I do? Well, back in the spring, I set up a CPD session for my team, and we do CPD quite regularly within the team, and we just take it in turns to train each other on topics of interest to help us all develop our teaching practice. So my session was 90 minutes. It's a very active, interactive session where I got people to have some hands-on experience of using Microsoft Copilot, which is our institutional tool that we have a license for. And I thought it was really, really important to build in some practical experience of using the tools so that people really understand how they work and what they do and how it feels to be using them. But there was also lots of time for discussion about what we were seeing. And most of all, I thought it was really important to make it fun. We had a lot of people coming into this session with very limited knowledge of what generative AI is and can do. We had a lot of people who were quite scared of what it could do and what sort of things it might end up doing or not doing. We had a few skeptics in the room as well. So bringing all those people together with all of those different emotions, feelings, viewpoints on AI meant that I thought we really need to just sort of take it down to a fun level, make it therefore quite easy to just play around, joke, laugh about what it's doing. But, you know, underneath that, we're learning at the same time. So here are the activities that we did. So this is in order of appearance within the session, lots of different activities that we did. So I started off by getting people to ask Copilot for some factual information. And I asked them just to think of a topic that they know well, and then ask Copilot who are the major researchers in that topic in the UK. So they did that. They were able to see that it can give you some factual information. It searches the internet, it brings back an answer. By getting people to ask about a topic that they already had some knowledge of, they were also able to evaluate that answer and figure out whether they thought it was any good or not. And I think that's quite an important thing to think about, isn't it? Since doing that with students as well, we've had some really interesting instances where it's given them an answer and they've gone, oh, it didn't even mention so-and-so, who I think is super important in that area. So they're learning that it can give you an answer. It may not necessarily be an accurate or best answer. So we tried out factual questions. Then we asked for images. And I asked them to get Copilot to make images of lecturers in various locations. We had lecturers in the refectory. We had lecturers on the beach, all of these different things. And again, they were just looking at, you know, what can it do? How well does it respond to a prompt when you're asking it to create an image? What does it show you in terms of, do all the people look like people? Do they all look the same, or do they look different, etc., etc.? So they were really just exploring what can it do and how well does it do it. After that, we asked for some writing from Copilot. So I said to them to ask it for an email to your line manager requesting some days off. And it did that. And then I said, okay, now ask it to change the tone of that email. So maybe make it more silly, make it more passive aggressive, make it more ominous, choose whatever sort of different silly tone of voice you'd prefer. One of my colleagues said, add more bananas, which I would recommend trying out. That was really, really funny. So again, we're getting used to its text production capabilities there. We're seeing as well how good or not good it can be at using different tones of voice and different writing styles. After that, we quickly had a look at how it can summarize a journal article. This one I just demonstrated to people rather than asking them to do it themselves, just for reasons of time more than anything else. But I showed them how it was able to look at a journal article and produce a little summary for me, which then I questioned and sort of got some clarifications on some points. The article was about AI in higher education, and there was one bit that it pulled out in the summary where it said that one of the main things that we need to really watch out for in higher education with AI is that it might not be very good at reading people's CVs. And I just thought, out of everything in this article about higher education, university education, why have you picked out a really small throwaway comment about people's CVs and their employability? Which, that is a point about higher education experience. We're hoping that people might go off and get jobs afterwards. But I'd sort of thought, that's not how I would summarize that paper. So we're able to discuss that a little bit as well. So after all of those initial activities around searching, around image generation, around drafting text and summarizing, what I then asked people to do was bring all of that together and work as a team to create some cereal, some breakfast cereal. And we'll have a bit of a look at what that was in a second. So I did, first of all, just get them to ask it, what are different audiences for a cereal advert? And that's really, that's one of my favorite things to do with generative AI, actually, is to say, give me options, list 5 different things that I could do, list some different audiences, list some different directions I could take my work in. So doing that brainstorming with generative AI. So all of this stuff is scaffolding us towards the big activity that we did in this session. And before we get on to that, I'm just going to get you to have a quick go if you would like. So we'll take a couple of minutes here. If you are logged into any of the generative AI tools, just ask it for an email to your manager requesting 2 days off work. You can make up the reason if you want. Maybe you're going to see Taylor Swift in Liverpool. After it's given you an email, ask it to change the tone of voice to make it more ominous. And if you would like to post your results into the chat, I think we could all have a good laugh at those. Oh my goodness. So Joe has just posted in the chat. You're off to join Motorhead for a special event, okay? It's quite a formal activity there, isn't it? So hopefully you might be getting a more ominous version of that in a second. To me, this doesn't strike me as super ominous just yet. I really like changing it to ominous tones, so we'll see if we can. Oh, fantastic. So Stephen's off to Taylor Swift. Mark is the shadows have whispered secrets to Mark, and he is compelled to heed their call. Excellent. I really love this. Fantastic. The details are best left undisclosed for now. Excellent. So we're getting the idea, right? I think if you scroll through this chat, there are some excellent things here. It is surprisingly good at writing ominous sounding emails. What I would like you to have a think about later, perhaps, is the similarities between all of these emails. And I think something that ChatGPT and the other chat AIs do really well is creating really standard form stuff, especially emails. They're all going to start with like, dear manager, I hope this email finds you well. Here's what I want. Here's why it's beneficial. Yours sincerely from me. So that's always going to be the case. And after that, there'll be small differences in the text, but not huge differences. That's really beneficial for some types of writing. Is that what we want for essay writing? Just going to leave that question floating in the ether. So moving on then, to put all of these separate tasks and capabilities together, what I did was I asked the team to use Copilot to produce a design for a breakfast cereal and a mascot for that as well. So here are the requirements. This is what I asked everyone to produce using Copilot. They needed to have a name and a logo for that cereal. It needed to have a mascot along the lines of Tony the Tiger. It needed to have an image of the box. We needed some information about that cereal as well. So what does it contain? What does it taste like, etc. And there were points awarded for things like straplines, slogans, jingles, etc. Okay. I'm loving the chat. Thank you very much. I will be scrolling back through this afterwards. So let's have a look at what everyone produced. These are in order of least horrifying to most horrifying. So first of all, this is Fruity Fizz, the breakfast bat. He's got the cereal that's good for that. With fruits and grains and natural sweetness, he'll make your morning full of completeness. I think he's quite cute. I would probably buy that one. Okay. This one is Dreamy Creamies, which will make you feel like you're in a fairy tale. They contain antihistamines that can cause drowsiness and sedation. So make sure you consult your doctor and read the label carefully. Which great to have in a breakfast cereal for children, absolutely. Okay, here's one for a different audience. This is Menno Mix. Embrace the change, savor the crunch. Theme song is to the tune of I Am Woman. I am woman, hear me crunch. I eat Menno Mix for lunch. Which, yeah, great, horrifying. Not sure how commercial that one is. We will see. Here is Crunchy O's. Honestly, I was crying by this point as well. Crunchy O's is a delicious cereal that will make your mornings more enjoyable. You can make your own Crunchy O's cereal at home with this simple recipe. Crunchy O's is not a real product, but a fictional name I came up with. So Copilot was going slightly off-piste on that one. And here's finally Pop Rocks will make your breakfast a blast. The cereal that's music to your mouth. Hear the pop, taste the rock. And I really enjoy this particular advert. I think this is probably my favorite one, especially the misspellings. When I did this, here's what I got. I think this is a really good illustration of how Copilot doesn't always get things right. I don't know if you can see in the middle there, it's suggesting that for my cereal for extreme sports enthusiasts, a great name for the mascot would be Granny. And another one would be Zara, which rhymes with extreme, says Copilot. So yeah, great advice, but definitely needs a little bit of fact checking, a little bit of critical thinking afterwards. So just to sum up then, I asked my colleagues to help me evaluate this session afterwards, and these are the sorts of comments that they fed back. I said, coming into this, some colleagues were a bit skeptical, a bit concerned about what ChatGPT and Copilot and these sorts of things can and can't do, and what a student's going to be doing with them. Someone said, Gen AI is not actually as helpful as I thought it was going to be. It can often be wildly inaccurate. Someone else said it made it less scary, which is great. And I think that's really what I was trying to achieve. We did have really good discussion in the session about the limitations, the risks, the strengths and also the weaknesses. We can see through some of the stuff that we did in the session and that we've done here today as well. Sometimes it can take quite a lot of back and forth to get the AI to actually give you what you wanted. And I think for sometimes that's something that we just need to consider about the trade-off. You know, is it actually easier for me to spend half an hour having a long conversation to refine the output of an AI, or could I have spent that half an hour doing it myself? For different people in different situations, the answer is going to come out differently, but we had a really good chat about that as well. So in the future, we are going to do a little bit more thinking about this in our team. I'm working on some support for colleagues at the moment to help them talk about generative AI in their embedded teaching. We're going to do some further training within our team. We're also producing some stuff for students as well. So based on what we've done, what we've tried out, and what we are learning, we're going to be able to talk to students about how they're using AI and support them with that. Thanks very much. Thanks for the really, really excellent responses in the chat. I've really enjoyed all of that. If anyone's got any questions, I'm really happy to take them. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Emily. That was such an entertaining presentation. I really enjoyed looking at what you've done with your